kind of feel like you're good on
Can you give me?
basically telling the world your story.
I think so. So just to run through, so I'm going to tell my story and then bridge to why I started my sober compass. Do you want me to touch on um
I think you should celebrate today on here a little bit.
okay.
What what today is. I think you should let everybody know that.
Do you want me to tell them like what year I guess I can, yeah. I got sober in 2015.
Okay.
And then services and how to find me. Okay.
And then we'll put links in the show notes on YouTube and everything too.
Yeah,
So
is your big one on I saw you like it said give us 5 stars on iTunes. Are you doing Spotify as well?
we're on Spotify, Podbean, Stitcher. So
Cool.
yeah. And my mom watches. Everybody's
Oh,
mom watches. Yeah.
when did you
So
guys start? Like when did you
about 8 months ago.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
it's been about 8 months, and we made the commitment that we're gonna drop a show a week over the next 6 months, or I don't remember how long the commitment is, but I think it's for the rest of our lives. And we did that even through the quarantine and all that. We got on Zoom and continued to put out content, and I think it's gonna
Amazing.
pay off. Yeah,
It's so great that we can do that now, like not have to meet in person. You can just meet so many more people.
yeah.
I'm going to be recording my face for YouTube or no? Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
I great.
You ready to go?
Yeah, we're rolling. We're recording. So I
All
mean, none of
right.
that's going to be in there. We'll cut this stuff out, and we'll make it
Okay.
professional.
Thanks so much, Will, for having me on your show. I'm really pumped to be here. I'd love to kick off with my story because it means a lot to me. I think talking about the problem really emphasizes how great the solution is. So I keep my story very close to me, and I'm not afraid to tell anyone about it because, yes, it's dark, but it also has a lot of gold nuggets in there. Like I had a lot of realizations on the way. I'd love to start with my first ever experience with alcohol. Alcohol was my big, bad addiction gremlin. I picked up my first drink my first day of school at Villanova University. I was enrolled in business school, and I felt the urge as soon as I watched my parents drive away. I went upstairs to my new dorm room. I didn't know anyone in my dorm except this guy who was down the hallway, and he said, why don't you come and meet some people and have a drink? And I thought, hey, this is a great opportunity. I've been waiting to have a drink until I got to college for whatever reason. And I remember the clothes that I was wearing, where I was standing, who I was with as I took that first drink. And it felt like magic, honestly, going down my throat. I was so warm all of a sudden, and that numbing experience happened immediately. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I am going to do this every day for the rest of my life. And I believe from that moment that I took that first swig, my alcoholism just like popped its head out and reared its face in front of me. And I find that when I remember moments like that in my life, they're pivotal, right? Like those times when you can remember where you were standing, who you were with, who you were talking to. And that was my big moment. So I continued on with business school. You know, I did the whole thing, the whole 9 yards. I found my crew. I was part of a sorority, and I had a lot of fun. And drinking became the number one priority in my life very quickly. I found that even going to class in the morning, I would bring like a cup with me and try and hide my booze. You know, I'd just drink just enough, not to the point of obviously blackout when I was in class, but I would have just enough to kind of take the edge off. And then as soon as school was over for the day, I would go hard. Over time, this started to wear me down. So I was at school for 4 years, and I started to notice that anytime there was a social situation presented to me, I wanted to be a part of it. And not only just a part of it, but I wanted to spearhead it. I wanted to be the first one at the liquor store, the first one at the party, rile up all my friends, and then be the last one to leave. And things escalated quickly. I became really comfortable with blacking out. I became really comfortable with bad decisions. And it started changing the core of who I was. My addiction really started making me question like what my values were. But I felt like since I wasn't living under a bridge or drinking out of a paper bag, that I definitely wasn't an alcoholic, you know? And I surrounded myself with people that liked that lifestyle, and they're great people. I loved them, but I was always, I realize now that I was the center of my problem, because the numbing, the coping, all of those things, alcohol had given me a way to process emotion. It had given me, it's funny, that first night that I drank, I actually cried about my dog who had passed away 2 years prior. And I had never grieved his loss. So alcohol kind of gave me this way to process my emotions and process my feelings. And it was a norm. It became a norm. Every day I was drinking something, whether it was to black out or just a couple, but I knew at that time that it was definitely going to be a staple in my life. My family got the first glimpse of my alcohol on the day of graduation. I felt like graduating from school was terrible. I did not want to be without my friends. Most of them were going back up to New York City, and I was going to Washington, D.C. I felt isolated, alone, scared at what the future held. I did not have a job lined up like most people that I knew in school. And so what I did was I tucked 2 champagne bottles under my grad dress and drank them during graduation. Little did I know that my family was sitting in the stands. My mom had a long range lens camera on her, and she was taking photos of me chugging these drinks, right? And I was drinking straight from the bottle. And I felt at the time like this was normal. So graduation ended, the ceremony ended. I don't remember any of it, but what I do remember is the shame. My family started to talk to me about this could be a problem for me. And I started feeling really bad inside. Like I knew that, okay, you know, I've been caught, I've been seen, I have these pictures now. This is what I look like. Oh my God, is this who I am? But I didn't stop. I kept going. And that last week after graduation ceremony, I was drinking so hard that I actually was going through withdrawal. I had these intense nightmares. I was shaking all the time. And I did not know that that was part of my alcohol addiction. So I packed up my things. I went back to DC, and I did what I knew best. I started drinking again. Addiction is cunning, baffling, and powerful. And it got worse and worse and worse and worse. I went from job to job to job, trying to escalate my career, trying to do big things, trying to be great. And what happened was I kept landing in these sales jobs. So I worked for a company that was a startup in DC, and it was a software company. It's no longer around, but at 3 p.m. every day, they would bring around a beer cart. And I thought, oh, this is the best company ever to work for. I love this. I love that they care so much about us. They're bringing this cart around. But what no one could see was that under my desk, I had already stashed more booze. And I thought this was normal. So when the beer cart came around, I would daintily take one drink, you know, and in public, I would show people that I was just, but under the table, I was actually having more than one. My tolerance was becoming so high that it started to really scare me. And we're only talking like 4 years into my drinking career. My career was 10 years, I like to say, my drinking career. My tolerance started becoming so high that, yeah, again, I started to question my alcohol use. My friends started calling me on it. They weren't sure like why I wanted to party every single day. And to be honest, neither was I. I just thought this was a great way of life. I thought, I feel really good when I drink. I don't really care about the consequences. But then the consequences started stacking up. For example, one night I went out for a company happy hour and I went missing. And I still can't recall those 5 hours of where I was. But the next morning I woke up and I was outside of my apartment door, and I had this beautiful apartment that was overlooking the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia. And I had this flash that the cops had been talking to me the night before, but I couldn't remember. So I opened up my apartment door, I was really kind of out of it. And I just thought to myself, again, I remember where I was standing and who was around me and where I was. And I thought, how many more of these nights can I take? Rather than celebrating that I had this great Uber driver that could drive me around DC, I could go to all the bars, I could meet people wherever I went, I could run up these huge tabs and not really care. I just thought, wow, this is starting to get scary. But I wasn't ready to let it go. My career continued to progress. I let go of that sales job and I decided, you know what, maybe I'm unhappy because I'm unfulfilled in work. And for those of you who have ever taken the Enneagram test, I'm a 3, which means that I really care about my achievements. Like my career brings me a lot of value, and my addiction definitely played into that. So when I left my career in sales, I decided to get a career in event planning and build a lifestyle that would allow me to drink whenever I wanted. So rather than work with a company initially, I had 5 different bosses. They're great event planners in DC, but I could plan my drinking around when I worked. So I didn't work Monday to Friday, but I worked, weekends here and there, weekdays, I'd fly around. I did like a Nike half marathon. I did a lot of balls and galas. And I was thinking, yeah, this lifestyle is great. I'm making good money. What else can I do with my event career? So as my addiction was progressing, I found finally this dream job on LinkedIn. And it was to be a global corporate event planner. And they said they needed someone to fly to Europe that first week. So I could see that there was like over 300 applicants for this job. And I prayed and I hoped and I really wanted it. So I walked in, I got an interview and I walked in and they hired me on the spot. And I felt like I was on cloud 9. Like I've arrived, I've made it. My ego really made me feel like, Arielle, you're the best. Who cares about your drinking problem? You're the best. Boy, was I wrong. This job was amazing, but it was hugely stressful. And it had me traveling to Europe twice a month, all over the US, planning events. And what happened was I could really plan my off days, whatever day I wanted, to just disappear for a few days with the bottle. And I knew that was not good. But I also was not willing to let go of my drinking problem at the time. So a year into this job, I had a few things happen. I had my best friend kind of did a mini intervention on me. She said, I don't want to hang out with you anymore because every time I hang out with you, you disappear. Whether it's going to a bar in Georgetown, going out in Arlington, you're a liability when we go out. And that was a big wake-up call for me because I really, usually by the end of the night, I couldn't remember what was going on. I couldn't remember what I was saying. And she said, look, you repeat yourself, you're annoying, you talk to everyone, and you don't make any sense. So here was my best friend in the whole world calling me out on my shit. And what I did was I just ignored her. And I said, okay, well then we'll just hang out during the day. She went on the wayside. I started seeing financial issues, like spending $30 a day on booze at least really adds up over time. So that's if it's just $30 a day, that's $900 a month. And then I'm not even counting when I would go out and just pretend like that night didn't even happen. You know, those nights when you like lose your debit card, and that happened to me on a weekly basis. And it was embarrassing. The other concurring addiction that I had was a Tinder addiction. So that last year in 2014, 15 felt like lost because I had lost a 5-year relationship with this man that I really loved, but we weren't driving anymore. My drinking actually something that was getting in the way. He was living somewhere else. And so I decided that Tinder would be a great idea to get me out of my slump. And Washington, D.C. is full of military men who are not looking for long-term commitment. And at this point, I was debating moving out to London, England with my company. I didn't want to be tied down to anything. I just felt like I was building this future life for me to live in. But what was happening was everything started to crumble. My health was going down. So at the same time, I introduced Tinder. I had eating disorder issues when I was young. And so my eating disorders started popping up. I lost 50 pounds in 4 months. And I had prioritized drinking over eating. And so those are my 3 big addictions: alcoholism, Tinder, so that's love and relationship addiction, and then eating disorder, which was anorexia for me, or bulimia. So here I was, everyone was telling me, Arielle, you're looking great. You know, you've lost so much weight, you're single, you're living the life. But internally, I felt like I was slowly dying. I started having suicide ideation. I started thinking about, why am I alive? What is the purpose of being on this planet? And it was getting so dark that I tried to quit on my own. So one morning I woke up after a 3-day bender. I was in my apartment and I was so mad at myself. You know, I did one of those things where you wake up, you look at your phone, you start to shame yourself, think about your bad decisions. And I marched over to my fridge and I pulled out all these bottles that were half open and I just dumped them. And I said, fuck this. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm weak. I'm terrible. Why am I like this? I don't need alcohol. And so my first bout of sobriety started off on the wrong foot because it was all self-hate. I hated myself. I couldn't even look in the mirror at what I had become. I can still picture it. It was ugly. And I outed myself to my closest friends. I said, look, I'm not drinking anymore, but I set the tone. I said, I'm still going to be going out with you, but I'll drink O'Doul's and nothing else is going to change. I still want to fit in. I still want you guys in my circle. I still want to be fun Arielle. And so my 4-month bout of sobriety, the first time, it was awful. I didn't work a program. I didn't even look up or Google what sobriety could be. I just thought I had it all figured out. And I was a miserable human being. I wasn't happy in any way, shape, or form. And I thought, I actually had met a girl in those 4 months that was in recovery. And I used her as my reason to start thinking about relapsing. She came to dinner with us once with all our friends. And then halfway through dinner, she said, you guys are drinking too much. I wasn't drinking, but everyone else was. She said, I'm leaving. This is not fun. And so I got this impression that sobriety wasn't going to be fun. And then the wheels started turning. And the more Tinder dates I was going on, the more frustrated I was getting. I was watching lots of people drink. Every time I'd go out, I was trying to find guys on Tinder that weren't drinking. And then I found 2 and they were like, oh, it's for medical reasons. Like, it's not for for choice. And I did not have any exposure to happy, sober people. So my funny story is my relapse story is that I went to a bar in Georgetown to meet up with this Marine on our first date. And the guy was really odd. He was very weird. I just knew right off the
so I'm running out of time on this.
I see.
Can we stop at the funny relapse story and restart the meeting and come back into
you bet. Here. You want
that?
Same password and everything?
I'm not sure. I have to leave this meeting and then
I'll look on Instagram.
I don't know. This is the first time I've ever ran out, and they're not the longest ones that I've ever done.
Oh, that's okay.
I had one time that's like, your time's been extended, but I don't know. But I think that's a good spot to pick back up with the energy that you have going.
Perfect.
I hate stopping right there.
No, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I saw it.
Okay, I'll call.
Okay.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I'll jump back in.
Okay. Talk to you in a second.
Okay, bye.